Hi, this is producer Bill Williams. We're going to talk about swing grid, swing percentages, swing shuffle, basically the same thing. So let's start off with a definition of what is swing. Swing shuffle percentages relates to a percentage of movement of the second and fourth 16th note within a 4/4 beat. So it pretty much mostly applies to 4/4. And we're talking about moving the second and fourth 16th note later. All right. So let's actually show what that means so we can kind of all get on the same page. We'll start by just doing a little review of how you count rhythm in 4/4. Let's play the click. So we have a click there. It's counting 4/4. So let's count along. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So that's just counting along with a click. So let's put a kick on top of that click. We get 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So now if we subdivide that kick, the 4/4 quarter note kick, we're going to get eighth note. Eighth note is half of a quarter note. So this gives us an upbeat, 1 and 2. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and right. So you got your 1, 2, 3, 4 quarter note, and now we're counting the eighth note. So you're getting, if you want to count every eighth note, it would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and right. So you're getting 8 subdivisions per bar instead of 4 subdivisions. Now you're getting 8. The next level of subdivision is 16th notes, where you're getting 4 subdivisions per beat, or a total of 16 subdivisions per bar. And you count it like this: 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Okay, so you're breaking it down into 1 E and So you're still getting the 1 and, that's the eighth note. So the eighth note never changes. Okay. But we're adding now a 16th note subdivision. You're getting the second subdivisions, which is 1 E. So you're adding the E, 1 E, and then so eighth note, and then you're adding an 1 E and that's the second and fourth 16th note within a bar. Now, in straight quantize, where all of the 16th notes have the exact same value, it sounds like this, what we just listened to. That's straight quantized 16th notes. Every single 16th note is the same value. Let's look at the actual tick value of each of these 16th notes. So we have the first one here. If we look here at the navigator, it starts off at tick 0, and the duration is 240 ticks. All of these are going to have a duration of 240 ticks. That's how long a 16th note is, when the quarter note is 960 ticks per quarter note, which is the standard for all DAWs. 960 ticks per quarter note. Half of that, an eighth note, is 480. So we go to the 1 E and and you get 480. Duration of 240 ticks. So this is in ticks, 960 ticks per quarter note. That doesn't relate to time, because the value of the tick will vary depending upon the tempo. So if the tempo is slower, the tick value is going to be greater. That's how it works with tempo and ticks. So we're not talking about time here. We're not talking about the clock time. We're talking about tempo time, which is going to vary depending on the tempo. But the subdivisions will not vary. The percentage of the value of each event is going to stay constant. So at this tempo, the value of a 16th note, 240 ticks, is going to be equal for each and every one of these. So again, you have 0, 240, 480, 720. Those 4 values, 0, 240, 480, 720, are standard and the same on all DAWs and any sequencer where you would quantize it to straight 16th, so that every 16th is even. But swing doesn't work like that. It is, you're moving the second and fourth event later by a percentage. How much of a percentage? That's what we're here to figure out. So if I zoom in a little bit, you can see that the grid here in Pro Tools is all set to a straight 16th grid, which is standard. Unfortunately, Pro Tools doesn't have the ability to show you a swing grid. That is a omission by the designers. Hopefully someday will be fixed. Okay, so what we're looking at here is, this is where the 16th note, or this fourth 16th note, this hi-hat should go. It should go, if it were straight 16th quantized, it would go right on that grid line, but it's later. Now this one is right on the grid line. That's the eighth note. Remember I said eighth note is always the same. So here's our upbeat eighth note hi-hat that we did a second ago. Here is the hi-hat that is straight quantized, and then here is the hi-hat that has swung quantized, and we're going to look at the percentage of that in a second. You can see that the quarter note lines up, the eighth note lines up, but the second and fourth are later. You can see how much later they are than the straight quantized 16th note. Okay, so we're later. So now what's the value? Where the value is 752. And here it's 272. So it's 32 ticks later than straight quantized. So so it's actually moving the value later. Now we don't know what the percentage is. Well, I actually do know because I already figured it out. But let's take a look here. So how do you figure it out? The way you figure it out is kind of a little bit of a trial and error. Now what I noticed is that I used to use Performer, and Performer, the value of kind of standard deep house shuffle was about 80, 85 was what I would find, most of the time. Most of the time it would be, if I was doing that type of a beat kind of like this, if this was the kind of beat I was working on, let's listen to the beat itself. So this kind of like swung house beat. I listened to that and went, that's probably 80%. In Performer percentages, but Pro Tools is a little different. What I discovered is Pro Tools, first of all, it will go to 300%. Now I don't even know why you would need the extra percentage of shuffle. And I guess if you're trying to swing, do like eighth note swing, I'm not sure. But I found that even below 100%, the percentages were more were actually a little more sensitive than what I expected. So with a little bit of trial and error, I'm like, okay, let's try 50%. Oops. Let's try here. Okay, you can see that they moved. All right, so let's zoom in and take a look and see what that just did. So it moved quite a bit later. It moved the MIDI note later than the hi-hat on the audio. Well, that's not what we want. We want to line it up. So let's try 35%, just to kind of, and see now it's earlier. You can see that it's earlier. So that's not right either. So let's try 40%. And that lines right up. Now, I already determined it was 40%, but you can see that's the trial and error. You just type some numbers in, and when it lines up, you know the number. This other beat down here was a shallower percentage. So when I listen to this beat by itself, when I say shallower, I mean not quite as swung. In other words, the percentage was lower. I could just listen to it and go, that sounds more straight, but with a little shuffle, right? So it's got a little shuffle, but not a lot. It's pretty straight. So let's confirm what my ears are hearing by zooming in and going, yeah, see, it is behind the grid line. So therefore it is swung somewhat, just not as much. You can see both of these, the second and fourth hi-hat are behind the grid line, whereas obviously the quarter note and the eighth note are right on the grid line, as they should be. So what I did here for this one is, again, trial and error. I knew it was going to be a lower number, so we could start at 20. And then we take a look, we'll zoom in. And that's maybe a little too little of a percentage. So let's try going a little hotter. Let's go to 25. And that looks good. That's what I ended up with, is 25. So that pretty much shows you how to achieve it. Again, the percentages are going to be a little different from one sequencer to another. Even this has all of these others. It has Cubase style swing grids. It's got Logic style swing grids. It's got MPC style swing grids. So obviously every company seems to have their own kind of special sauce where it comes to these swing grids. Why? Couldn't tell you. But what's the important thing is to know what the tick number is, not so much the swing grid. Because if you know what the tick number is, then you can tell if you're once you know what you can just write them down. Then you can tell if you're the parts that you're playing, say bass lines or arpeggiated keyboards or whatever it is that's going to be rhythmic MIDI stuff, has to be in the same swing grid. That's the whole importance about determining what your swing grid is. It's not just to get all your other drum tracks, but your other music. It's like, think of it this way. Swing was actually invented, for big band jazz, right? And so if the bass player is doing one particular type of swing, then the drummer has to be playing that same exact kind of swing. Otherwise, they're not in the pocket. One guy's doing one thing, one guy's doing another thing. Trombone player, he has to be playing that's in the pocket. If the piano player is playing like fast stuff on the piano, he's got to be in that pocket. You can't just have one person playing in robot time and then the rest of the band is swinging into the pocket. It don't work like that. Everybody's got to be in the same pocket. Otherwise, it just sounds like, I don't know, robots and humans trying to coexist or something. So that's how you determine your swing grid. And once you've determined it and you know what, like I'm looking here at this second and fourth. So this second note is on the lesser of the two swing is 260. Normally it would be 240. So this is the second and fourth 16th note on this secondary beat are delayed by 20 ticks, whereas on the more swung beat, it is 32 ticks. So that just kind of gives you an idea of how to do it. You have to have a pretty good understanding of how your quantize window works. But once you've got that figured out and you can determine your percentages, you should be good to go. All right. Enjoy.